For us to understand how frequencies affect us individually, we have to know how we feel at the essential level before we introduce different things. So for example, like what are you eating? Is that actually good for you? You have to know how it feels to be in a pure space of loving kindness to yourself, to even pinpoint, what do I need? Who are the right people for me? What interactions actually uplift me, make me feel like I'm my true self, as opposed to mixing with elements that are foreign and that bounce out of your field, essentially, if you're really choosing to be authentic. Most people aren't taught that, though. We need false factors to feel a sense of wholeness, but that's really fragmentation. So that's really the ego's reality. It's a fragment itself. So let's say a small child feels a sense of inferiority. They're themselves, they get rejected, they experience pain, maybe their parents don't focus on them, or they feel insignificant. And so they start attaching to different things to gain that validation and love and affection. And then they start to pick up these different ideas of what it takes to achieve that experience of love. It's not true love, because to get that feeling of validation, they have to split from themselves, do strange things, they react out of character, pick up new preferences, and do things that represents a new reality. So you're adding all these different layers onto the self. And at a certain point, you don't even know who you are. You're just the amalgamation of all these different variables. And it's completely false in nature. So if you have all those layers, how the heck are you supposed to know what you actually need, who you actually are, what relationships really serve you, because you can't identify with your own soul. So you just live this jumbled up experience in which you're fragmented. And in order to achieve a sense of happiness, you think you need more fragmentation in order to gain a sense of feeling as one within yourself, but it's really as one with all the fragments. And that's really the danger, and why so many people can't contact their higher self. Because to get there, you have to strip down to the core. And that's an experience where you can't conform. You need to be okay with rejection, with feeling a sense of oneness within yourself without anything else that's creating interference or distraction. And I think that's really the issue with the world these days, that there's so much noise and there's so many different extremes that people feel more oneness when they're blending in with conformity, with the noise and the chaos of reality. And that's kind of the hard way into achieving connection, because you're blurring out the self in order to get this sense of false peace. And we need the other way around scenario to reconnect with who we really are.
So is that oneness with other that someone thinks they feel even real, or is the real oneness only when you're one with yourself and you know who you are, and then it can be the mirrored experience on the outside with everyone else? Like, do you need to have that first?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're breaking down what the alchemical union really indicates. Yeah. The alchemical union is where two souls meet. So you have to be at a base level of the oneness experience and know what it's like to empathize, know how to understand the other, know how to really experience the tantric energetic exchange and be completely at peace with all parts of you, because only then can you hold space for the other person's experience. And if not, then it's just two egos. Back to what you said about you can't see yourself, the other person can't see you, and then you're just dealing with two mirrored realities, which is really a trauma bond. So many people, they entangle with somebody in a relationship to try to create a sense of wholeness. That concept of you complete me, or I need you to experience love within myself, or even feeling like you can love yourself because the other person's loving you. But that's really a train wreck. That's just waiting to happen. Because if you're feeling that bond to receive love for yourself, then you're not actually meeting yourself or the other person. You're just experiencing the need for them to validate yourself in all those weak areas where you can't love yourself. And then future interactions are always going to be derailed if you can't really connect on the deepest level. Meanwhile, the alchemical union is you're already experiencing oneness within yourself. Masculine and feminine polarities are integrated. The mind and heart are in coherence. You're experiencing this feeling of, I'm totally at peace, and I'm ready to share all of this love that I'm feeling with another person to get to the next level and see how I can expand myself even more through them. And then they mirror you at a soul level, and it's even more enriching than you can experience yourself. But that's the level of already like, I'm good with it within myself. I'm ready to give even more to the relationship to get even more of a reflection of me in return. But very different than the egoic relationship, which is kind of the standard these days, unfortunately.
Do you think that the relationships are meant to last, or do you think that, well, I guess one question could be, what is the point of relationships? Maybe we'll just start there.
Point of relationships, well, first of all, everything is a relationship, like we're tapping into. So the relationships are meant to teach us who we really are as a separate unit of consciousness. So based on what we interact with, the first level of understanding is, what are we actually attracting? because whatever you're relating to is something that was a match to your energetic field. Why did you attract that particular person? Why are you having that particular experience? You already manifested that without even realizing that you did. If that's triggering to understand, the question is, what is happening subconsciously in your mind that pulled in that experience?
You think you deserve that.
Exactly.
Basically.
Right. And if it's something you don't want to be experiencing, what's the lesson you haven't yet learned, which is why you needed to attract that person, place, or thing in order to experience yourself differently because of that situation. And so if it's something traumatic, or if you feel you don't attract the right kinds of people or things, for that matter, it's because you're not actually experiencing yourself at the highest possible level. You're not your higher self. You don't believe that you can be completely as one with all these different parts of you, your true purpose, your true personality, your true abilities. You don't embrace that, and then you attract lackluster relationships and things that show you you're really experiencing some degree of fragmentation or emptiness. And so that, I think we need to understand that relationships are always mirrors of our own consciousness. And if we see that as such, then we either embrace what the person in the relationship is showing us about us that we don't want to accept, and we integrate that, or we step out of the relationship, because that means we've either outgrown it or we've chosen to be a false version of us, which attracted that relationship in the first place. And that's very often what I see when people come to me and they say, can I even experience a relationship with this person that I met before my spiritual awakening? And it's a very tricky situation to deal with. Because
is it possible? I mean,
it's possible if that person's ready to experience the new you, if they're evolving with you.
Yeah.
Very often somebody ends up falling off the bandwagon, because if you are evolving faster than the partner is able to accept, then you'd have to keep yourself down, essentially stop your own evolutionary journey to accommodate them at a lesser level of awareness. And so it's not even about judging the other person. It's more about parting ways peacefully if you realize, I can't really be myself with this person. Because that's, I think, the purpose of a relationship. It's not just a shared experience of pleasure, where people are just enjoying their bodies or the physical experiences. That's very kind of egoic, just to satisfy yourselves through each other. But if you really want to achieve the maximum growth that you only can if you're with the other person that's reflecting different parts of you, then if you can't experience growth, what's the point of the relationship?
Right.
You stop experiencing the maximum potential.
So then it makes me wonder, is each person able to deliver a certain amount of growth potential, because they're still the same person essentially, to give you this sort of plethora of lessons? Are we meant to stay with one person, or is it really like, if you're on a growth path, that it will be hard to maintain the forever, because you choose growth over consistency, over the other, essentially. Choose yourself, I would say. Very curious about that, because it seems like relationships are meant to teach you something. And if it teaches you something, then it seems like the lesson's over.
Well, that's the reality of a karmic relationship, where maybe a soulmate that has to come into your life to teach you a certain lesson, but they can come and go. But the issue these days is I feel a lot of people are approaching relationships in a totally different way, like the opposite of what we're talking about. They're not soulfully there for the full experience. And so it's transactional. It's kind of a reality of, I want to experience something else that this person can give me, or maybe I just want to see what it's like to be with that individual. And so you're just infatuated with their identity. And if you just grow tired of being with that identity, or you don't like how that feels after a certain period of time, then you just swap for another partner. And so that's like kind of a come and go scenario. You're not actually there for the growth. You're not there to invest fully. And I see a lot of men actually, they're not willing to go all the way, because let's say they're egoically living their life. They're committed to work. They're committed to achievement. They want a woman that's just kind of a trophy for them, or that gives them a certain experience. But if they're not there for complete growth, they're going to be of the mindset that if this woman is too demanding, or maybe she wants the full package deal, her heart and soul are in the relationship, and that's more than he wants to offer, then he's just going to keep switching for relationships where he can stay at that egoic level of control. If he doesn't want to surrender, if he doesn't want to really give his heart. And so a lot of people are finding themselves even spiritually invested in a relationship where one person maybe wants to be there, but at a certain level where it's convenient, or they can maintain their ego and not experience that harmonious evolution to the next level. Because that requires sacrifice to a degree. That requires taking that person as a part of you and empathizing deeply and dealing with the uncomfortable feelings and different difficult experiences.
What is the biggest thing that, categorizing men, women, what is the biggest thing that men, or the masculine in the relationship, needs to heal or do a better job with? And what is the feminine or the female need to do so that we have more potential for this alchemical marriage where each is whole in itself to come together? What is the wound on each side?
Yeah. I want to take it even to a higher level, because I think we can begin by really unpacking that both partners, male or woman, they have to go through the same kind of alchemical union within themselves. So the first thing is realizing we all have masculine and feminine polarities within our field. And so that energetic union needs to be first at the level of, can you think and feel in tandem? Can you surrender the sense of control? Can you allow yourself to be with another person and to see them and to take their needs as a part of your own? Can you let yourself prioritize certain values? Are you actually mature enough to be in a relationship where it's not just all about you and you're actually there to experience evolution and caring and compassion? They're really such fundamental values, but I feel so many people are disregarding them these days because they're so in it for what they want and need. That's a big issue. So men need to learn very often, because of just patriarchal standards and different values that a lot of boys have, to also be with their feelings. Because if they're really with a feminine woman that's done the work, they need to be able to hold space for empathy, be compassionate, really feel her, slow down their pace, be at the level of complete presence and devotion to her and to her needs. Because if a woman's there to really give the man what he can expand onto his heart and soul, the highest level of purpose, he needs to be there to fully feel and synthesize and synergize with what she's projecting. And it's going to be very subtle. There's a lot of deep energetic truths that the woman offers that men often are triggered by. Like a woman starts to speak her heart and she's really sharing what she's somatically picking up on is off. And men are like, no, I don't want to go there. That's too loaded. Or maybe it's just too triggering because his ego doesn't want him to see that's a reflection of him.
Maybe doesn't want to deal with it. It's
doesn't want to soften.
Unfamiliar.
Exactly. If he doesn't want to be at that level of the feminine's divine experience, then the relationship's going to end, because the woman needs to know to prioritize her deep feelings. But the opposite can be true too. So a lot of ladies these days, they're also in a hyper-masculine flow. And I feel that's also a big issue. Either you're too masculine all the time and you can't slow down, you can't surrender, you can't be in your feelings. And then it's tricky to experience the deepest level of love and devotion. And then you attract the same thing, maybe a man that's more toxic or abusive or neglectful, and you want more, but because your heart isn't supporting more for yourself as part of that deep, compassionate, self-loving experience, then he doesn't give you what you really need. But then the opposite end of that spectrum for a female might be a lot of feeling, a lot of empathy, a lot of compassion, and then you attract a narcissist. And then you end up feeling depleted, degraded, disrespected, and so many women are allowing that experience still. And I feel we're going through a wave of a lot of women that are realizing they're not experiencing what they deserve. As soon as they up level, the feminine rises, and then they can't allow the mistreatment to occur. And they choose to just step out of any unhealthy dynamics to prioritize themselves. That's where a woman steps into her fullest power, realizing that her purpose and her connection to love, to her heart, to source, to energy needs to be kept intact at all times. And the imbalanced man is always going to try to degrade that, to gaslight the woman, to say...
Just to siphon power from that person, right?
Like, to keep her in a trauma bond.
Right.
And that's a huge issue, because so many women are taking that as a truth because they want the relationship and what the man provides over connection to themselves. If they have, let's say, a father wound or some other issue where they can't really see their own power. And so they stay in those relationships, disregard themselves, and slowly change over time and morph into less of a feeler, less of an empath, or kind of a wounded version of themselves. So both parties need to do the work to step into their power, to merge the polarities, to think and feel in tandem, and to really be sensitive to what's the point of the whole experience. Because to have a really enriching relationship, we have to really realize...
What is the point?
Exactly. Where are we going from here?
What is the point? What do you think the point is? And what's the next level? Like, what is the point?
The next level? Well, I think the next level is being in oneness all the time. It's a game changer. So that's a person that's devoted to living most purposefully. Really just creating oneness at the level of the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual. It's a big ask, but it's a big thing to devote yourself to. And if you're living your life consciously, intentionally, if you're aware of everything you're doing physically, how it's affecting you, you attract a partner that's naturally more intentional. And so those are the relationships that last possibly forever, like you mentioned, because they have the same needs. They're committed to the highest point of expansion, basically living in oneness all the time, as much as a separate individual can. So just doing your best to create that balance.